This is Morning Express, and glad that you're here with us this morning. It is the 26th day of November 2015, and it is indeed a great and a wonderful day. Well, remember, today is the day that the Pope is expected to address a mass of around 1 million Kenyans, and we'll be crossing over later on just to bring you live footage and coverage of the preparations that are taking place. I believe Sharon Mumanyi, Lofty Matambo, also Mashirima Kapombe are all right there getting ready, and they're going to be bringing us footage and information of what is happening. I've already seen pictures on Twitter of some of the faithful who are already there. People are already getting themselves ready, so we'll be crossing over and also bringing you stories from there. But for now, I'd like to introduce a panel of guests that we have this morning, and to my extreme left we have Bishop Dr. Njuguna, who is the senior pastor for Deliverance Church Langata, also a member of the National Council of Executive of the Deliverance Churches. Welcome, sir, and good to have you.
Glad to be here.
Okay. Also next to me I have Abdullahi Abdi, the chairman of the National Muslim Leaders Forum, and also good to have you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, let me start with you, Dr. Njuguna, and maybe the importance of, first of all, Kenya's stand and being a religious nation. We do know that Kenya is known to be a very religious nation, both Christian, Muslim, and other faiths. But what is the importance of a nation, first of all, having a religious background and foundation?
I believe that religion plays a very, very key role in helping people develop certain values. And sometimes it becomes unfortunate when we do not seem to demonstrate some of those things that we believe. We teach, those of us within the Christian church, and I believe it could go with any other religious group, that our faith, we hold to the scripture as a principal guide for our faith and practice, which means that everything I do should have validity because it can be acceptable to be good morally, and something that, of course, considers my neighbors, considers those that I relate with. And I believe that some of the things that we have survived as a nation, because we have gone through very stormy situations, sometimes associated with our politicians, is because of our religious information. The fact that we are a religious nation, we have been able, by the grace of God, to go through those situations and recover. After 2007, when I traveled around the world, people were very impressed at the manner in which we bounced back. After what was
after the
post-election violence. And I believe what informed that was because we are a people of prayer, people who really, and of course that time a lot of people committed to prayer and fasting. So religion plays a very, very important role in informing human behavior, human ability to many times persevere. And of course, more importantly, the fact that when we honor God, we can know that we need to express care for one another.
All right.
Yeah.
Abdullahi Abdi, your take in terms of the importance of a nation being or having a religious foundation.
First of all, as people of faith, we have to know why we are on this earth. We do not find ourselves here accidentally. As people of faith, we don't believe in the principle of evolution, that we came from the monkeys and apes. And because of that, there is a purpose for which we are on this earth. And that purpose is one that has been done by our Creator, who has brought us here and gave us responsibilities and a code by which we live on this earth. As individuals, as groups, as societies, and nations, and globally. And we must have peace with ourselves, with the people we work with our environment, and globally. This encompasses a lot of things. Fortunately, first of all, in Kenya, the majority of the people of Kenya are people of faith. They can have different faiths, but they all are believers in creation, and they believe in God, in whatever form of God that they believe in. And because of that, we are answerable to that God. And this God is a good God. Is a God that has given us a code of conduct for us to live when we are here. That gives us peace internally. It also gives us peace within our own environment. How we interact with one another, how we interact with our environment, how we interact with the leaders that we have, how we interact with the ones who are below us, the younger generation, how we interact with the weak, how we interact with the sick. So all this gives us responsibilities as individuals. And as Muslims, we believe that each and every individual that has come on this earth will be answerable to his creator. So at any one given time that we are sitting somewhere, we know that we have a responsibility and we have to answer for that responsibility. So we should be prepared and know at any one given time, there is a major camera that is on us. That camera is from God. And that whatever we do is recorded, that will account for. And this will give us the position of having peace internally and doing good and justice to the world.
Okay. Dr. Njuguna, as much as Kenya is viewed as a very religious nation, there is a growing number of those who feel that religion is not their part. And of course you've mentioned, and you've also mentioned the importance, as you see it, of being faith-based. Whatever God you believe in, but at least you have a faith and believe in a creator. Would you say that the growth of the non-believers or the non-faith or the non-churched or whatever you want to call them is a result of a failure in our institutions of religion?
I don't want to accept total responsibility for those that would choose not to worship God in the manner in which we present him, because what has created all this, remember now we live in a world where with the internet and the communications and all that happens, the world has become a global village. So that there are so many inferences that come from all over for those who access social media and others. And therefore there's a growing trend of people, like of course you know very well, I think you have reported here, or it was reported last night, about a group defining themselves as atheists who are going to court to challenge the call of today as a day of prayer and reflection. And I'd seen a communication the day before yesterday where this person was arguing that Kenya is a secular society. And actually, unfortunately, this person was actually saying corruption is not a sin. And therefore, it was trying to challenge, the government because of the stand that they are taking, they're taking against corruption. And it's very, very unfortunate that somebody can be informed by that kind of belief, because it's completely against all norms. There's no one, even if you have no faith at all, corruption in itself, even if you want to go to the dictionary and know what corruption is, you can't justify it. So what I'm saying is that with the new constitution also, I think there are also freedoms and other things that people want to express so that they can say, well, I want to believe what I want to believe. But I think as parents, I still believe that God desires that those that I will bring as my children I'll consider them to be people who have a godly heritage. And I can only appeal because we have no control. When a kid hits age 18 and they have their own ID, it depends on the work you did from the time they were younger, if they are going to follow the faith that you profess. But to me, I think what informs the divergent views of beliefs is because of the exposure that is there. And I don't think, because remember, even in our current constitution, it's like we have made it that even if a child can say, I don't want to go to church, that you can't make them go.
You can't force them.
But of course, thank God that our children are still cooperating with us. So far, they haven't got to that extent in which they feel that they can just rebel or to ride on the Bill of Rights. And I think it's very, very important for people to appreciate faith, like you have said here. And I think this gentleman has also said the same. It is a foundation of moral values. And good moral values will give us better lives.
All right, just a reminder that you're welcome to participate in this conversation, and you can do that via Twitter. The Twitter handle is at KTN News, or you can also tweet me directly, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga. Towards the end of this interview, we're going to be reading and sampling some of your comments, and we'll look at how it goes. And Abdullahi Abdi, what would you attribute this growth, or shall I call it apostasy, moving away from the faith, equally from the Christian faith and even with the Muslim faith, and we'll come to radicalization and somehow how people are twisting faith to suit what they would like? What would you attribute it to, that failure?
First of all, I wouldn't want to overplay this issue of people going into apostasy and people who are denying the presence of God. in this country, the percentage is so minimal. It is very, very, very small level.
Nevertheless, growing.
It is there, but this is a phenomena that has started in the Western countries. And I attribute this to materialism that is coming in. When people feel that actually they are comfortable, they feel that actually they are the ones who made themselves that comfortable. They don't know that these are the blessings of their own creator. And they start to rebel against the creator who gave them all those means that they are actually rebelling against. The Constitution of Kenya was done by the people of Kenya, and the people spoke. And in the first chapter of the Kenyan Constitution, the presence of God is recognized. So when somebody talks about secularism in Kenya, yes, we have got the freedom. We have got exceeding freedoms and rights that we have been given, but there's a limitation to that freedom. And that limitation says, first of all, the people of Kenya recognize that there is a God. So they cannot run away from that fact. They can go to court if they are right. They will be heard. Judgment will be done in a very fair manner. But that does not stop them from believing in whatever they want to believe in. We don't force them to go to mosques or churches, but they cannot force the people of Kenya to run away from what they have already said, that we recognize we are people of faith, and that is within the Constitution of Kenya, unless they go and change the Constitution. The second thing is there is a rot which is coming within the society. Let us not look at those minorities. Let us look at the majority who are people of faith. Are they practicing what they say they believe in? Looking at Christians and Muslims and Hindus and the rest. If we sincerely believe that we are practicing what we say we believe in, would 2007 take place?
Not at all.
If we really believe in what we say that if we practice what we say we believe in, would corruption in this country, which has become cancerous, which everybody is talking about it, would we have got to that level? If we really believe in and practice what we say, would we be having the type of leadership that we are constantly complaining about? A parliament that we elect today and we start complaining about tomorrow? So we have to ask ourselves, forget about the ones who have become apostates. The ones of us who are within the boma, that we say we believe in God, are we following the teachings of our scriptures? This is the major issue that we need to address.
Okay.
The Pope's presence here is a blessing. He's here. And the Pope has talked in Kenya. He has talked outside Kenya. He's giving us moral values that we would live in. Those moral values are the same across all the different faiths. If it is spoken by the Pope or if it is spoken by another Muslim leader, it will be exactly the same. He has also given us challenges. The challenges of recognizing some of the problems that we do have, owning up those problems and addressing them. And one great thing that he's talking about is the poor and the weak within the society. He has identified himself with the weak within the society, and he has clearly proven that by where he's going to visit today. As Muslims, we 100% believe in what he's doing. But let me just challenge that to my Christian brethren, who are the majority in this country. How many of our leaders in this country go and share a meal with the poor in Kariobangi or in Mathare or in Kangemi? These are the things we need to address. This should be a wake-up call for us to say, yes, we say we believe. Are we practicing the belief?
All right, Reverend Juguna, let me come to you. And there's something Abdullahi mentioned here, and I'd like to hear your take on that in regards to materialism. The reason why we have this growth of the non-faith or those who would like to suppose or say there is no God is an influx of materialism. And this has not also left the church. I mean, there's also that coming in. Your comments on that first before we go to the actual parts that we have failed.
Well, you need to understand, according to the way Kenya is, and the things that Kenya stands for, as opposed to our neighbors, Tanzania, who practice ujamaa. You know very well our society is where people are free to go and do what they can do, and amass what they can amass. But I think it's good to understand, and I wish people understand, from a biblical perspective, your life and my life does not consist of the things, or the abundance of the things that I possess. And I think this is an issue. There are people who don't know that, so they are looking for any way. And let me give a great example. Sometimes we point blame to the wrong direction. I think the people who have failed this nation big time are our politicians. And many politicians who watch this may say that, that pastor maybe doesn't like us. But the key thing is this. But when you talk about materialism, where does materialism begin? It begins because you can go and award yourself hefty salaries and get away with it.
But that has also not left the church. In that, we also have many churches today who are full of materialism. Look at the Pope, and from what Abdullahi has mentioned, he is going to Kangemi to sit with those, and he has consistently talked about the poor. When we look at the church, do we have that same reflection?
I believe that for us, from where I stand, we do that. Of course, the church is so diverse. Right now, as I'm talking to you, we ourselves have projects where we are addressing the plight of people very far out of Nairobi. Our church has a center in Mandogo, just next to Garissa town, where we are educating people, not of Christian faith necessarily, but we make ourselves available. We have taken relief food there from Nairobi. We have also gone to other places. But of course, what I want to say is that, the church, like when you say about Kangemi, we have many churches in Kangemi, even our own church. We go to Kibera, we have churches in Kibera, through which we try to communicate some of the social needs that are there. And I think it's very, very important to understand the materialism. We cannot stop people from getting what they can get. The unfortunate thing is when you get things corruptly. And one of my greatest disappointment, and that's why I still go back to this, recently I was in Addis Ababa, and a gentleman was taking me around, showing me apartments, and he told me, up here in this apartment lives members of parliament. In the UK, and I know you are knowledgeable, many first-time members of parliament in the UK don't even change their vehicles, don't even change their residence. Now, what we need in Kenya is a change of culture, our kind of not just belief system, but the way we view possessions as a platform of getting whatever you can get so quickly. Because I think that madness is what has brought us to where we are in terms of corruption. That somebody is just looking for every avenue. I'm so glad because of what the president did the other day, said he's going to be very interested. And there are certain monitoring measures that are being taken almost immediately regarding that you cannot say you are buying a pen for 8,000, a pen that can cost 200 in Akuman. And if these things can be dealt with and if they are monitored closely, I think Kenya, we shall go places.
Okay. Abdullahi, do you agree that materialism begins with our politicians? I would look at it the other way around and look at the church as the basis. We've talked about, or we've mentioned that this is where we are born into a certain faith, and you grow up with these morals. Do you agree that possibly the politicians are the ones bringing in this materialism, or has the church failed? Or religion?
I look at it, the politicians are people who come out of the society.
They are a selection of the society.
It is the society which is rotten. It is society which is rotten. I want to give this example. If you have rotten milk, because we are pastoralists, we deal in milk. If you have rotten milk, always it's the cream that comes on top. The cream that comes on top will be rotten, naturally, because the milk is rotten. So the society is the milk underneath, and the politicians is the cream at the top. If the milk was not rotten, the cream would not be rotten. But because the milk is already rotten, the cream that comes on top is rotten. This is, first of all, an example that I want to give you. The second thing is, what are the values we live in? If I am electing a leader today, what are the values I give that leader? The type of car that he drives, the type of money that he flashes around, the type of posters and billboards that is going to do, the type of advertisement that is going to put on the screen. Are these the values I look for? Or do I look for somebody who is a very modest person, lives, within the people, looks at the problems of the people, he is honest? Is that what I'm going to go for? What is the role model for the society now? Actually, the time has come that if we continue on the trend on which we are right now, we are going into very, very dangerous levels. As I mentioned, we claim to be religious. We claim to be people of faith. But what we practice is completely contrary to that. And I just want to touch on two issues. My faith as Islam. We do believe that whatever you own, it is not yours. It is things you have been given in trust by God.
You're a custodian.
You are a custodian, it's not yours. You cannot go and chest stamp and say, my car, my house, my cash at the bank. It's not yours. You have been given as a trust. You use that to the best of your ability in a modest manner. But the needy has a right. So when a poor man comes to you and he says, I need that money, you give him money, you should not be feeling proud that I am giving him. It is his right. And he's doing you a favor to come and demand for what is his. So within that concept, if you have got that type of concept, you will know that this is not mine, it has been given to me, I have to share it with everybody. So we are not going to have this gap of having billionaires that we have in this country and millions who are living beyond the poverty line in the slum areas of this country. So that is one thing. The second thing is we talk about accountability. In our constitution, there is the issue of accountability. As religious leaders, forget about the politicians, as religious leaders, are we accountable? Are we accountable to the resources that the church or the ummah gives to the leadership? Do we account to them? How many of us, as religious leaders, have been put in the newspapers, have been taken into court because of what we do? Have religious institutions been converted into money-making machinery? What type of message are we sending to the people who follow us? So there's all these questions which we need to ask ourselves. So while this thing is all over, as religious people, we are also accountable to God. So first of all, we have to be accountable on the basis of the resources, on the basis of the leadership, on the basis of our own moral standards and the leadership we provide. So I think we need to do self-reflection and audit.
All right, Reverend Njuguna, where are we failing as a society, given from what Abdullahi Abdi is saying, that if the milk is not good, then the cream cannot be good. In other words, our political leaders, and we'll come to some of the books you've written. You've written here a book, Becoming a Secure Leader, and also The Moral Authority to Lead, which I believe is religiously based or biblically based. Where are we going wrong? Why is our society not drawing this from a childhood level to a point where now when we grow up, we implement what we have learned?
Well, I think we have failed to adapt very simple principles that can help people capture some of the fundamentals from very young age. And I've been thinking about what Ken Jiro is doing, Ugwana versus Ushenzi. If we can be able to help even kids who are growing up very young, even from every level of education, that when a kid is doing something that is naughty, they are made to know that is Ushenzi. And when they're doing something good, that is Ungwana. I think when I look at some of the things that are happening within society, I feel bad for us who are in leadership when we are not good role models for the young people who are looking at us. And I want to say, there are a few number of people in quote who are considered to be pastors, preachers, who really are not true. And again, with the freedom that is there, anybody can wake up this morning who even does not believe in Jesus, and they will go ahead and call themselves a pastor or an evangelist, whatever. So, and I think I usually say, I think it's bringing a blanket condemnation for everyone is not good. But I feel like also for us, I remember there's I don't want to mention names, maybe here it may not be safe, but there is a certain so-called preacher in this country who was indicted for a very, very serious, what we consider to be crime of bringing deception and getting money through deception. And the matter was, I know that the director of public prosecution ordered investigation about this particular person, excuse me, but nothing happened. So what happened? My suspicion, and it is as good as yours, this person still used the same money to corrupt their own way.
Isn't that part of the problem? Because if as religious leaders we cannot condemn and say this is wrong, we cannot call names and say so and so you're doing wrong, isn't that part of the problem? Because then they go scot-free. One of the things that is being revealed now is that the fact that the reason why corruption is such a big cancer in our society right now is because it pays, you get away with it, which is the same thing now we see in the church. Isn't it time that the church came out and said so and so and give names? This is not right.
I agree. I totally agree. And what you need to understand is that I still feel those in leadership. Like now, I was telling one of the leaders, I said, I believe that the government, the church, the true church, should have followed up to demand to know how this matter comes to.
When we talk about those in leadership, why are you excluding yourself?
No,
You're in leadership.
I'm also in leadership.
Right.
But
So you
I'm
should be in leadership.
And I'm saying that we need to point out, I think what we need to do is to have the courage of actually shaming those who are using our titles and they're not living light. And I have no doubt whether it's Evangelical Alliance, to whom I subscribe, because my Bishop Mark Kariuki is the chairman. We have Bishop Oginde, the vice chair. We have Kefa Omai, who is national treasurer, and this executive. These are goodly people. And what I'm saying is, what we need to do is to get to a point where we can be able to call a press and castigate and expose those that do not subscribe to the faith, those who are calling themselves the titles we carry, and they are not living right, I believe. And I believe, of course, you know, that also happens. Like now when we see some of the things that happened within the Muslim communities, there's some of the things that happen to some of the people who radicalize people. You know very well, very few of the Muslim leaders have come out to condemn them directly. Again, it's because of some of the things that you said. Now somebody will start taking you to court that you have named them, and then you end up wasting a lot of time to be able to justify what you say. Sometimes that is why you see people, you know, I think that's the reason why sometimes we don't mention them, but we mention situations, and those people who are concerned know about it. It's it's in the press.
Okay, although I still feel that as a leader, sometimes you're called to do things which are not necessarily popular but are right, because that's why you're a leader. I'll come to you, Abdullahi Abdi, on the same question in regards to, well, first of all, where the religious circles are failing to produce good leaders, number one, and number two, whether it's time to name and shame both Christian sector and also the Muslim. But also, for you at home, I'd also like you to participate, and remember, the numbers are now showing on your screen if you'd like to call in and maybe let us know what you feel. Why are we failing as a religious community? We are largely a religious society, but however, when you look at our crop of leaders, when you look at some of the issues that bedevil us, 2007 and 2008 should not have happened, just like you said, if indeed we are believers of what we profess to believe. So do let me know what your thoughts are, and the numbers are now scrolling. We'll take your calls shortly. But Abdullahi Abdi, where is the religious sector failing?
First of all, I want to own up as a religious leader.
Thank you.
I do believe that whether you talk about Muslim or Christian leaders in this country, we have all to own up collectively that we have failed the people of Kenya. Because we are the ones to give the moral guidance for this society. We are the ones to provide the spiritual guidance of this society. If you are a student and you go to school, by the end of a term or by the end of the year, you do a test and you check the performance of how you perform that year. If you take a scorecard of the leadership of this country, that is going to be based on what the society is. If the society is in its current status that we see, we have to own up and say that as religious leaders, we have failed. Because if we succeeded, these things would not have happened. If they did happen, they would have been a very, very much more smaller percentage. So we have to own up first. Instead of pointing fingers at politicians, which we do point out, we have to point fingers at ourselves because we created those politicians. So first of all, we have to own up. Number two, we have to look ahead now. Let us not talk about the past. The society, the current status it is in now is quite dangerous. If you, as a marketer, you look at the trend of things, you don't look at where you are. If the trend is positive, even if it at a very, very small level, you say this market is moving in the right direction. But if you look at the trend right now, the graph is coming down in the wrong direction. So we have to check what are we going to do to change these things. In that, the answer is quite simple. We should practice what we preach in the mosque or what we preach in the church. Simple things make a lot of difference. If you ask the average child who is standard 7 or standard 8 or Form 1 in this country, you say, who is your role model? Who is he going to say is this role model? Definitely not a religious leader in
Probably
Kenya.
a politician.
Okay, there you are. So if it is that politician, okay, then you know what the politicians in this country are. I don't want to mention names, but you know the politicians in this country, including all the members of parliament and senators and governors. You ask any person in the street, you say these guys are corrupt and they are finished, they are useless. Okay, so first of all, we have to look at what type of role models we are creating for this society. Number two, what are we going to do to change our values from materialism? The West have fallen into this state. The West is developed technologically, but the West is destroyed socially and morally. So are we going to follow the footsteps of the Western countries, the European countries, who don't believe in God anymore, who believe in money, whose, everything is based on how much materialism you have? So these are the type of things that we need to change us. So for me, I think whether it is Muslims or whether it is Christians, our basic values are the same. And I want us to say, I want to look at our leaders. As Muslims, we believe that Prophet Muhammad is a prophet. He is not God. We also believe that Jesus is a mighty messenger of God, and to us he is not a God, but a mighty prophet. If we look at those as our role models, if today we brought those people, are they going to be living in Karen? Are they going to live in mansions of 350, 500 million shillings when their followers are starving? Now, me and my brother, the bishop, if today we had the resources, will we go and live amongst our poor, or shall we be rushing to Karen? So we need to change our thinking system. Simple things like celebrating our religious holidays. For example, take Christmas.
Which is coming up soon.
How many of the wealthy people in this country are going to call the poor people who are living in the slums into their houses to come and enjoy that Christmas with them? They will be telephoning other very wealthy people to come and enjoy that Christmas. And they are Christians, and they are celebrating that day, which is the day of the birth of Jesus. So these are the type of things that we should be looking at. In our Eid holiday, okay, the 2 Eid holidays which we have in this country, are we bringing the poor into our own homes to feel for them? These are simple things that we need to learn. These are the simple things that we need to practice. And they are not new things. They are in our scriptures.
They're there.
They are there.
All right. Reverend Njuguna.
Yes.
The Pope has a unique way of sending this message of materialism across.
Yes.
I mean, even in the news yesterday, and this is not the first time, we've seen even just by virtue of the car that he uses, he's trying to send a message.
Right.
The people he visits, he's trying to send a message. What do we learn out of this, and how are we going to implement this to ensure that even after he has departed, it is not wasted? It's not a wasted message. We do know that the Bible says that his word does not return unto him void.
Yes.
How are we going to implement this?
Yeah, let me begin by stating something that is important, since we all appreciate the fact that the Pope has visited this country. It's good to look at the bigger picture. For me, one of the things I'm very happy about is that his coming here demonstrates to the world that Kenya is a safe destination. So we hope that people who are thinking they should not visit Kenya, now they can visit.
It's a clear message.
It's a clear message. Secondly, it's a statement of confidence that Kenya stands a unique place within the community of nations, especially in the region where we are. Of course, the affirmation, of the people of the Catholic faith, and his humble background. And I think it's good. I think those of us who came from very humble background, and I did come from a humble background myself. But my father was not a rich man. I mean, I came out from a very humble background. I think that informs, no matter what I have, because, I cannot say that I can be categorized as as a poor person. I have a few things here and there. But what I'm saying is, the humble upbringing shaped my character to where I still am very, very much touched by the condition of those who are the less privileged.
I'll come to you. I want to take a call from Ahmed in Mandera. But the question is, how will the Pope's visit, from the lessons we are learning from him, change our frame of mind, and how are we going to do that? I'll come back to you. Let me just take a call from Ahmed. Ahmed in Mandera, good morning.
Yes, morning. I'm hearing you morning.
Yes, good morning. Go right ahead, Ahmed, with your comment or contribution to the conversation.
Yes, I want to talk about the corruption.
Corruption.
There's a corruption every time we talk about the corruption. We talk. I myself am a Muslim. In the mosque we talk about the corruption. In the church, because we talk about the corruption every time, and the corruption is still there. The reason why this corruption is there is that my contribution, when we were electing our leaders, first time when we were electing our leaders, they give us money in order to elect them. Hello, are you hearing me?
Okay, yes, we can hear you, Ahmed. Okay, I think he's gotten disconnected. We also have Mohammed in Nairobi. Good morning, Mohammed in Nairobi. Go right ahead.
Morning to you. How do you do?
Very well, thank you. How do you do?
Quite fine.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
I'd like to appreciate whatever the discussion that you're having in the morning.
Okay.
But one thing that I'd like to raise is that in many situations.
Okay, Mohammed, I can hardly make out what you're saying. I need you to be a bit clearer, please, and a bit louder.
I'm saying in any nation, we must have a foundation. You know, we don't have the proper foundation as far as the education sector is concerned.
Okay.
We are not producing the best. And the Pope yesterday said that we must address the problem of the youth and the poor.
Correct.
We have seen that we produce youth who are not capable, right from school. The discipline is very poor.
Okay.
And they cannot even care for themselves. Another factor is that working environment is not conducive.
Okay.
So these problems generate poverty.
So it's down to poverty.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mohammed.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We also have Nabuona calling from Mombasa. Good morning, Nabuona.
Good morning.
Go right ahead, sir.
My contribution is minimal to the extent that we must know the foundation of a society before we tackle any problem. We all know that the basic foundation of any society is the family unit. Now, the church, the mosque, and any other religious institution should be at the forefront of ensuring that the family unit bring up the members in godly ways. Now, when the Pope tackled the issue of, the Pope tackled two major issues that are important for me. One, the poor, and two, the environment and sustainable development. Now, if you look at each family unit today, how many families welcome the poor into their homes? How many churches encourage family units to welcome the poor into their home? Secondly, how many families conserve the environment right from home? Do we leave these responsibilities to our leaders? Do we leave these responsibilities to our churches or to the mosque? I think the mosque and the churches and every religious institution should now zero down on the family unit. Because we are too busy, frankly speaking, we are too busy even to raise up our own children. And that is why the society is rotting. As the panelists said that the milk is actually rotten. The cream definitely will be rotten.
All right.
It comes from the family. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Nabuona in Mombasa. And let me come back to the panel here. In case you're joining us now, today we're looking at the state of religion in Kenya. And of course, with the visit of the Pontiff, the Pope, would like to know what impact are you expecting? What difference should we expect as a country? What positive things should we draw out of his visit right here in Kenya? Now, quite important here, gentlemen mentioned by the callers there, Ahmed in Mandera, talked about the way we elect our leaders and they use money. Again, we're back to materialism. And we look at like a society, what really drives us is this materialism. We have Mohammed in Nairobi who has talked about the foundation being important. Again, we go back to the roots. We have said that as a society, being religious, we are churched from being very young, or we go to the mosque from being very young, and this should be the foundation. Where is it failing? Then Nabuona has also talked about two important aspects that the Pope brought out: poverty and the environment. Let me come to you, Abdullahi Abdi. What role is the Catholic faith playing in terms of addressing the poor and the environment?
First of all, I'm glad that all the callers addressed issues that are quite relevant to the society today.
Absolutely.
Corruption, poverty, family, all those things are very, very key things. But my understanding of these issues All these issues have been answered by our religions, whatever faith we follow. But it goes back to what I said earlier. Do we put weight on those issues? He talked about foundation, which is quite true. When you are bringing up a society, you don't look at people of my age. You look at the younger generation that is coming up. The children, the youth, the middle-aged and so on. Once you come to my age, you're already gone. You know, you don't need to ask for anything else. You know, you cannot even change. They say what? It's very difficult to teach new tricks to
an old dog. Tricks, right.
So, but what I would start is from the foundation of the society. Even now, within those foundations we talk about, it is being worn out by the way that we bring in our education system. And I'll give you an example. There's a lot has been talked about madrasa. Madrasa also breeding terrorists. You know, this is what has been put into people's mind so much. Part of the reason we have those madrasas is to put a culture, is to put some values in those children from a younger age. Simple things, I'll tell you, which is within all the African cultures. A child is supposed to respect an old man. These days, in our time, when you go into a house and your dad is talking to people of his peers, the child will not sit with them. If he sits, he will sit quietly and listen. What happens these days? A child will walk in, the father is talking, he will shout at the father. And we see this as the right of the child. So the values we put in terms of rights is completely messed up. The values that if you walk into a house, or you are sitting and an old man comes in, you stand up for him, is all gone. It is me and me. That is the values we have now. The family unit which he talks about, I don't care about my dad or my mother or my brothers or my sisters. I care about myself and what I own, and most probably if it goes further, it is to my wife and to my children. In my faith, we are told that part of your responsibility, you believe in God, and then you look after your relatives. And your relatives is quite wide. You start with your father and mother. It goes to your brothers and sisters. It goes to your uncles and your great uncles and the cousins and so on and so on. And all those people are responsibility if you are better off than them. It goes further. We are told that you take care of your neighbor. We are taught to a level whereby your neighbor has got more rights on you. In Islam, actually, it goes to a level whereby even it borders on the neighbor inheriting you, because that's the amount of value we put on him. And who is the neighbor? In Islam, you are told the neighbor is not only the next door. It is 40 houses on the right, 40 houses on the left, 40 houses in front, and 40 houses on the back. This is the whole society that you live in. And we are told if there is one of those neighbors who sleeps with hunger that night, on the day that you are going to account to your creator, you will be answerable for it.
Stewardship is, we've been entrusted to responsibility. Indeed, stewards in the Bible are shown to have been entrusted with great authority and responsibility. So a philosophy of Christian leadership should always be informed by Christian convictions and values. Now, this is the baseline. And I think everything will be very positive when we start punishing and not enduring people who completely abuse what leadership is. Because when I'm given a position of a leader, it's very easy to abuse power. You know, and how do I abuse power? Is when I can make a decision, an unilateral decision, where I'm going to use money entrusted to me to do things that are just of benefit to me. Because I don't have, I have no conviction, I have no value that informs me, and I get away with it. Recently, I think last year, December, my wife and I were in Dubai, and there's something that the tour guide told us that I will never forget. This tour guide told us, in this city, in this country, there are two things you don't need to worry about: corruption and insecurity. And remember, these are the greatest challenge we are dealing with as a country. He said, if anybody is convicted for corruption, the consequences are so dire that no one wants to be on the long side of the law on this, because you lose. Of course, whatever you had stolen is recovered, but it's like he indicated that even what you have, you lose and you are locked up.
May be lost.
If in this country, we are right now talking about hate speech, we are talking about corruption, we appreciate the fact that the president has led the war against corruption. But Do you know what it would mean today if one of those profile readers was convicted in a court of law and locked up? It was serve as a deterrent. But they seem to get away with it. And that's where we get things wrong, because people think they can always get away with things. Do you understand what I'm saying? So what we need to see is a change of attitude, a change of culture, and we need to understand that whoever controls the culture rules.
But isn't that dealing with things from the top? In that, yes, we shall punish them. But the question is, why haven't these values been passed on from our foundational?
It's because of the condition. Remember, the Bible says in the book of Jeremiah that the heart of man
is desperately wicked.
Is deceitful and desperately wicked. And we need to understand, when we talk about morality, this is, you cannot register it. You cannot register morality. It's an issue of the heart that will come because of one's belief and conviction. And people naturally, and you know how kids grow up. Even when you and I were growing up, there is a tendency of becoming naughty, naturally. But what controls us and contains us is when we start showing our faith in God. And that's why I say, I think the man who has come to this country in the name of the Pope Francis has so many things that we can learn from him. For example, all of us are talking about the fact that he
used a Honda
Honda to go to,
and he's also declined to take a helicopter.
Which is very, very, which is a demonstration of humility. But I remember what I said earlier. I think the most important, I think we need to point ourselves as parents, because I think the responsibility of those, I think the issue of corruption and whatever it is, if we can begin at home, when kids are very young, and I'm glad, I think the president said there's a curriculum that's going to be introduced that will start teaching certain issues of ethics and morality from school, because I've said it many times in my preaching and also in some of my TV programs that I do, that the greatest challenge we have in this country is not lack of money, it's lack of moral behavior that can be able to help us as a people. Because you see people going into office fast, corruptly. You know very well, and I can say this without fear of contradiction, even some of these appointments to government positions, there are people who qualify, but we never see them appointed. Why? Because I hear there are certain payments that are done for you to attract an appointment. The question is this: are we going to look at the competence of a person? Are we going to pick somebody because they can be able to cough some money? These are things that can only be broken because of a very serious determination. And I think we can only commend that we have a president in this country, and if you doubt his commitment, I think especially since of what he did recently, I think everybody is starting to realize. We have had the leader of Kotu say clearly he believes that the president is serious about his war against corruption, and all he needs is to, you understand, he is not the one who is going to make a ruling in court.
Okay.
So we really need all of us. He needs the support of every one of us, including the church. And we have been challenged as a church to preach. And the Evangelical Alliance, by the way, we are having something we are celebrating this coming week, and we are inviting you to KICC. And I hope your media people will be there. We are celebrating 40 years.
Okay. I know you've also written the book, The Moral Authority to Lead, and I'll come to that because that's another area that we need to tackle. But let me come to Abdullahi Abdi and the question that I posed to him, to you as well.
Yeah.
Why isn't the religious end of things instilling these values to a point where we can implement them? They are there in the Quran.
Yeah.
They're there in the Bible. Why aren't we seeing them now as a result of us having grown up with that foundation?
Before I answer you, I just want to pick up from where the bishop stopped. First of all, there's a lot of hype right now that we should do good because Pope is here. But this hype comes and goes. And the memory of the people of Kenya is very short. When Obama came here, there are a lot of things I don't agree with what Obama does. But some of the issues like on corruption in this country, what he talked about, we all celebrated. And people thought change will be there. Nothing happened. In fact, 1 month after he left, we saw the worst corruption in this country. Now, the Pope is going to leave us tomorrow. We'll be celebrating for the next 1 week and talking about these things. What happens after that is the question that we need to ask ourselves. Having said that, It's not always that we are on the media to talk about these things. My position is that each and every Kenyan who is watching us today here must self-evaluate himself. What role did you do to bring corruption to this level in this country? Somebody wrote on the social media, he says Kenyans are all corrupt. The ones complaining are the ones who didn't get the opportunity
to do that.
to do that. If that is actually the feeling of the people of Kenya, really we are gone. The whole social fabric of the society is rotten. So we have to address that. How do we address that? Let us start with the small things first. We elect MCAs, we elect members of parliament, we elect governors, we elect senators, we elect the president. The president, I voted for Uhuru, but frankly I don't have the confidence in him today. Why? Because he has made a lot of utterances in the past. But what happens after that? I don't see any concrete action for him to follow up with the utterances that he makes. Every time that there's a hue and cry and the country's temperature goes up, a task force will be set and he's going to call the press, he's going to issue a statement, he's going to say, I'm going to be firm, but things continue. As he said rightfully, I'm not seeing any concrete thing. Even with the changes that has been done within the cabinet, I'm not seeing any major change. So first of all, we expect that leadership to come and prove itself that serious what it is doing. As Kenyan voters, we ask to ask ourselves, the MCA and those people we are electing, what are the values on which we elect them? Is it because he's my tribe? Is it because he's my clan? Is it because he drives a big car? Ask yourself and vote according to the basis of the character of that individual, not but the basis of material that he has. I have nothing against wealth. I am not against rich people, but the wealth you earn must be earned rightfully, not taking away by force, either robbing with a gun or robbing with a pen, or robbing with a chair because you have got a key position within the government, and then you become a billionaire. And you use that money to get yourself into a position to protect yourself. So we have to ask ourselves, as Kenyans, not only as religious leaders, as Kenyans and each and every one of us, okay, what role did I play in terms of contributing to the corruption of this country, which is promoting poverty, and you are living in poverty. Tomorrow, you will go back walking all the way to Kariobangi, and you will be walking all the way back in the rain to Mathare. But you will stand up and vote because you will be given 500 shillings or 1,000 shillings to vote, and you'll continue living there. There is enough wealth in this country, and we should not have Mathares and Kiberas. We should not have. But what we need is to spread that wealth. And if there is justice, if there is fairness, if there is less corruption, there will be no poor people in this country. We talk about being middle class. As a middle class country, we are not middle class. There are people who are in the middle class, but the majority of these people are poor people at the bottom. So we are not saying to have a revolution and go and fight the rich people. They are our brothers, our sisters, and our children. But let us rise up to make sure that actually we change the leadership of this country.
All right, and remember, you're welcome to call. The numbers are displayed on your screen, and you can see there also the preparations that are taking place at the University of Nairobi. What's your take with the pontiff coming to Kenya? What is it that you'd like to see as a result? Just like Abdullahi Abdi has mentioned, we did have Portis come into Kenya, and there was a lot of excitement, there was a lot of positive vibe after he came, especially in dealing with some of those things that have really troubled us as a country, namely tribalism and corruption. But after he has gone, well, has there been much change? And of course, we are looking also at our leadership in relation to our religious stand. As a country, we are known to be a religious nation of different faiths, but however, most Kenyans being very religious. And I want to come to you, Dr. Njuguna, and this particular book you've written is called The Moral Authority to Lead. And looking at our leaders and the selection that we have, we're the ones who went to the polls and elected them. We're the ones who put them there. But based on your book and maybe some of the research that you have done, do we have leaders that are morally leading us? Do they have the right to lead? And what are some of the qualities we should be looking at? Abdullahi Abdi has mentioned that we should vote people based on their character, not their position or their ability that they're able to give. What are some of those values that we should be looking out for?
I believe that one very, very important value that we should look for a leader is humility. Because pride, if you get a prideful leader, they will not even be willing to listen to anybody because they are full of themselves. In chapter 8, which you will check on this book, because I think I've signed one copy to you, is that greed and selfishness comes naturally with human beings. It is suddenly when leaders who occupy key public offices are only preoccupied with what they are going to get for themselves in terms of perks and allowances, who are turning a blind eye to the plight of the common man. So, and I think about this country. A short while ago, for instance, it was reported that some of the key leaders in our country earn allowances that are bigger than their actual salaries. What can you make of a situation like this, considering the fact that Kenya is a low-income country? I would like, when you look at that book, because I think it's a debate that I'd like the media people to continue highlighting. This country, we seem to be an economic crunch, and thank God that sometimes some things have been said from central bank that seems to show that we still have hope. But one of the biggest problems we are in, and nobody's talking about it, except in very quiet places,
circles,
is that the biggest mistake we did is when we passed the constitution and created 47 counties. I've written about it in this book. I've written in some of the publications that are in the streets of Nairobi, that unless we are going to bite the bullet and be willing to amend our constitution to reduce this country to a reasonable number of counties so that there will be more development, teachers' salaries cannot be increased, the nurses cannot earn better. Why? We have so much duplication of services in the counties. Can you consider this? And this is a very real situation. In the United States of America, in 2012, the population was 312 million. And US has only 50 states, which are comparative to counties. The economy of California alone is said to be 50 times more than our own economy here. What came into our politicians in Naivasha to propose, and I hear the debate was between 14 and 16 counties, but how they decided that they're going to make as many counties as there were districts, that was the biggest problem. And the only way now to come out of that problem is a discussion in Parliament. The senator of Mombasa, and I can say this without fear of any reprisal, we were together at the Hekima College just recently off Gong Road, and he said, and I hope he can take full responsibility for this statement, that there's nobody in this country, especially the leaders, who does not know that Kenya should not have more than 16 counties. Now, why is that not debate? Why is that not debate going on right now? So that by the time we go to election in 2017, we can have a leaner government and save money and pay teachers better, pay nurses better. It's just because of having that selfishness. So leaders should be chosen because they are selfless. Leaders should be chosen because they are, those are some of the qualities.
I'll cut you short and I'll come to you, Abdullahi Abdi, on the values that we should be looking out for leaders when we are electing them. But let me take a call from Isaac Mwangi in Nairobi. Good morning, Isaac.
Morning, Mr. Mike Utonga.
Yes, go right ahead, Isaac.
Thank you. This morning I salute the men of God. Now I would like to contribute about two things.
Okay.
One is about the corruption. There is a place many people don't look at, because I believe that the fruits are also the results of the roots. Okay, the fruits are the results of the fruits. Because if we talk about corruption, there is a place in school. We need to look at corruption from the school, from the nursery school, and also from the primary all the way to the high school, because our leaders are mostly educated from the school. So I believe the root of the corruption is right from the primary school, because that is where a military officer was taught from, and every other leader, whomever it is.
So are you suggesting that corruption is taught in schools?
No, I'm not suggesting it is taught, but I think it is also learned from the school. Okay. And it is also supposed to be taught against from the school. Okay. Okay, the other point, I come to the church, I also preach. I'm a pastor of few people. I would like to say, even as we speak of the corruption from the church, we must also know that when we preach, we leave people to choose. And not everybody who believes what we preach. So the other thing, I would like to say that the church should not take the blame squarely, because we preach and we allow people to choose between good and evil.
Okay.
But that does not mean that we should not continue being vocal. My last point is that we as church must also try to evangelize, to reach people with the truth of the gospel, and also to try to bring them into the kingdom and into the kingdom of light.
Okay.
Thanks to you, Almighty Tonga. God bless.
All right, thank you very much, Isaac Mwangi, calling from Nairobi. And let me come to you, Abdullahi Abdi. First of all, maybe just to get your comments on what he had to say in regards to what we're seeing. The fruit is a result of the root. In short, again, we're back to foundation. And the second point he makes is that as a religious leader, you can only say so much and give people the truth, and it's up to them to make a choice.
I fully agree with him. And I also concur with him when he says that actually fighting corruption should be started from the primary school level. These are values that we are going to instill in those children that they will grow up with. And if those values go inside them in school, they come home and they see these values being practiced by their parents. They go to places of work as they grow up and these values continue. Then we are going to have a revolution in terms of coming up, in terms of true ethical and morally upright society. First of all, that's my position. Just one quick thing what I want to touch on what my good bishop has said. This issue of the devolution and the 47 counties. First of all, this was debated at the national level, and this is a highly politically sensitive matter. I do believe it is not the 47 counties which is the problem. It is not the bloated government which is the problem. It is the amount of corruption which is in the devolution process. How much money is being stolen within every county, which is the problem. It is how much money is being stolen at the national level, which is the problem. We have enough money in this country to run a very effective national government. We have enough money to run at the county level within the 47 counties, but at both levels, and even going lower, there's a lot of corruption that's going on. Now, coming back to address these issues, it goes back to the leadership who are managing our resources and our nation. Whether you talk about security, whether you talk about economy, whether you talk about education, this is controlled by the people that we have entrusted them with those authority of leading us and managing those resources and leading us. Who should be the leader in this country? What type of leadership are we going to look for? First of all, we have a saying in our language which says that the bull, a good bull that's going to come up, you will know it when it is still tied with a rope and when it's still in a stage of a calf. So this thing starts at a very, very early stage. So a leadership is not something that you are born in like Kenya and you take it. In Kenya, you make money, you steal money, then you go and buy the leadership.